Well, we know it's important to have a nutritious diet. What role does vitamin D play? And is it an important nutrient that many people are overlooking? Well, joining us this morning is Detjen from Windmill Farms with some great information as always. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
So vitamin D, what really does it do for our bodies, and why is it different than any other nutrient that we would need?
Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin/hormone. It actually does all these different functions in the body that we never even imagined before. We're realizing now that the sun plays a very important factor in how D works. When we get about 10 to 15 minutes of sunlight, we get about 10,000 IUs of vitamin D, which is actually ready to be converted in the liver to a stronger form, and the kidneys to an even stronger form than that. And what we're finding out, if we live in the middle part of the U.S. or even higher, the immune system seems to drop, and people get a lot more disease in the winter months than they do in the lower hemispheres, which is fascinating. Because this is what sparked all this many, many years ago, is why people are getting sicker in more regions and not sicker in others.
And obviously here in San Diego, we're not thirsting for more sun, but obviously it's a good balance. So a little bit of sunshine is good, gives you that energy.
Yes, it's the best. The only problem we're finding now is that sunscreen with an 8 or higher blocks the body's ability to convert vitamin D. And without D, we can't have good bones, we can't have good teeth, we don't have a good immune system. It goes on and on. We can't believe all the different factors. Our muscles hurt, our bones will hurt, our eyes won't work right. So we're finding out that we really need to spend about 5 to 15 minutes in the sun 3 times a week, depending on what your doctor says, and then put the sunscreen on afterwards.
I see. So just a little bit of sun, obviously, to feel the good energy effects, but not the burning effects. Still keep the sunscreen on.
Precisely.
Well, what are some of the ways we can get vitamin D into our diet, obviously, besides just like supplements? Are those okay, vitamin D supplements?
Yes, you better believe it, because usually found in pretty small quantities. We used to think the upper limit was 400 IUs. Now we're finding the upper limit to be at least 2,000 IUs, which we thought was dangerous a few years ago, but it's not even close. In fact, they did a study with men, and they found out that we use about 3,000 to 5,000 IUs minimum per day.
Wow. Okay, so don't go over 2,000 IUs. What about this? Salmon?
Talk to your doc, too, depending on what kind of drugs you're using. Salmon, if you cut that in half, about a 3 to 4 ounce slice is about 400 IUs, which is pretty good. That's the same amount that's found in about a tablespoon of cod liver oil.
Cod liver oil. So cod liver oil, salmon. Yes. Obviously butter. Vitamin D in butter?
Yeah, you wouldn't think so, but there's a very small amount in there. Butter and egg yolks have a small amount. Butter has more than yolks.
Okay, do egg whites have it? You know, people who are watching their cholesterol. So obviously a balance between your personal diet. If you're facing cholesterol issues, you don't want to eat a lot of egg yolks, but still get your vitamin D.
Yes.
Okay, what about other types of fish? Canned
Sardines.
Fish?
People love sardines, and I'm not a big fan of them, but nonetheless, they're good. They're good for most people. My wife loves them, and those have about the same as salmon in it also.
Now, how is canned fish versus fresh fish? I'm always reluctant. Obviously, I eat tuna, but I'm always reluctant to buy like canned salmon and sardines and things like that.
That doesn't seem to be a problem. But the vitamin content seems to be about the same either way. It's about 400 IUs found in the canned salmon also.
And different.
It's a lot easier for some people. Some don't like the fresh. They'd rather have something in a can.
Okay.
Like a salad.
But the nutrients are still the same, not just the vitamin D, but other types. It's still, once it's canned, all the nutrients are still in there. Not a problem. Okay. And then what is this? Parsley.
Parsley. We wouldn't think so, but parsley has a little bit of D in it. Mushrooms grab the sun's same way that we do in our body. The sun hits it, and it actually converts it into a usable form for us, the D3. And we also have Brussels sprouts over here, or alfalfa sprouts also, that help us in the process of getting more vitamin D.
Now, how is the vitamin D in these vegetables compared to what you would find in the fish?
Much lower. A 1/10, 1/5, sometimes 1/20. This is the gold standard over here is the fish. And then we move down to the butter. Eggs are smaller, and these are even smaller than that.
Okay, and what are these are what about vitamin D3? What is that? Is that different?
Yeah, almost all the research has been done on D3. When the sun hits the skin, it takes a cholesterol compound and turns it into D3. So this is the beginning process to go into the liver, to go into the kidneys, and this is one of the best ways to do it these days, as long as you do it with food.
So it's D3 is higher potency than a D. It's like converted differently.
Yes, there's D2 and D3. D2 pretty much comes from plant sources, and it has to be converted to the active form. But the D3 is the one where all the research was started with. That's what we've done it with. So we've kind of stuck with D3 over the years because it makes it more reliable.
Well, what about with people who are taking vitamin D then instead of D3?
It's the same.
It is the same?
Yes. I would look on the back. Almost all your companies are switching from D2 to D3. So D3 is the most common form out now. And both of those are D3.
Got it. And then what
cholecalciferol.
about, I heard that vitamin D is good for calcium consumption. Is that right?
Yes.
How does that work?
Vitamin D, without it, calcium cannot go in and out of the intestines where it's needed, and it gets blocked that we take too much out of the bones and don't put enough back. It actually helps the conversion to go back and forth.
I see. So that's why most milk is vitamin D fortified to get that calcium intake.
And some people think we should be taking calcium with the D, but nonetheless we need it for all these different functions, from heart health to kidney health to bone health to eye health. It has all these different functions that we can benefit from.
Well, thank you so much. Some important information.
Thank you for having us.
Bottom line is to eat a well-balanced meal, though, to have all the vitamins. All right. Thanks so much.
A little bit of
If you guys like more information, you can always log on to fox6.com. And still ahead.